What's up, YouTube, Gen X? Proving yourself worthy. Let me start off with an example. Let's say I'm looking for somebody who is hardworking. I'm trying to hire somebody, and they have a strong work habit. Okay, they're constantly working, trying to go above and beyond. And you're trying to get that position, so you're applying. And I make it clear that I'm looking for somebody that has a strong work habit. They're a self-starter or whatever you want to call it. You're going to sit back and ask yourself, how do I prove that I'm a hard worker? Now, most people may logically come to the conclusion that they should show that they're not lazy, right? But if I deem you as somebody that's not lazy, does that automatically deem you, am I automatically deeming you as somebody that's hardworking because you're not lazy? No. You can be a normal, average worker. But at the end of the day, what am I looking for? Somebody who's hardworking. I'm not looking for an average worker. Now, one may assume that because they're not lazy, they must be hardworking, but it doesn't directly prove to me that you're hardworking and that you're going above and beyond. So if I were applying, I would take that into consideration and not try to prove that I'm not lazy, but prove that I'm hardworking and I can get stuff done. Now, when you listen to what black men are saying, or at least the ones that I would say are productive, they're saying they're looking for women that have those sort of wife-like qualities. Okay? So if I'm looking for a chick to prove herself, I'm looking for her to prove that she can be that wifey type of person, that quote-unquote Claire Huxtable. But oftentimes you'll see women trying to prove that they're not ghetto, or women that have attitudes, or women that fall under that sort of black woman complex, which is great. Right? You're proving that you're not loud, you're not ghetto, you're not combative, you're not disrespectful. But at the end of the day, that doesn't prove or highlight the fact that you may be wifey. Yes, there are black women that are not attitudinal, they're not ghetto. But if that's what I was looking for, if I came through and said, I'm looking for chicks that are not ghetto, they don't have the attitudes, then you proved yourself. You're good. Once again, it's like me saying, I'm looking for a worker that's not lazy. Okay, prove that you're not lazy, then you're going to be what I'm looking for. But proving that you're not ghetto, you don't have an attitude, or whatever, does not prove that you're wifey. See, oftentimes you'll get black women that will say, well, how come I'm not being chosen? I'm not ghetto. I'm not loud. I'm this, I'm that, and I'm that. I'm like, okay, that's cool. That's great. But you haven't satisfied what I'm looking for. Once again, if I'm looking for a chick that's not ghetto, that's not hood or whatnot, you are perfect. You're perfect. But because you're not in that category, does not mean that I'm automatically putting you into the wifey category. You still have to prove yourself in that category, and this is where, once again, a lot of the women fall short. There is a standard, in my opinion, and I've said this to the men as well, there is a standard that women have to comply with in terms of them being deemed as wifey, women fit to be married. But this idea that, oh, well, I'm not ghetto, I'm not as hood, or whatever you want to call it, doesn't prove that. You're not proving that. So standing up and saying, well, you're, stereotyping all black women, no, not so much. I understand that there's women that don't fall under those sort of negative stereotypes. But at the same time, you're not falling under the category of women who may be wifey. You haven't proved yourself in that area. One of the areas that I think is desperately needed, and I think black men overall hold this power, is to be very blatant and be very upfront in terms of what you need to qualify to be the wifey. Because right now there's this idea that as long as she's not hood or ghetto or, not on some like baby mama drama, somehow she's wifey-like. And you'll have women that will, classify themselves as wifey material. Why are you wifey material? Well, I'm not on welfare. I don't have any kids. Or whatever you want to, whatever she wants to put out there. But it's like you're not proving anything. You're proving you're not that negative stereotype, but you're not proving to me that you're fitting in with what I'm looking for. So I think overall there has to be that clear understanding of this is what I'm looking for. I don't really care if the women want to accept it or not overall. I'm talking about more so on a personal level. With me, I don't really hold back in terms of clearly communicating to a chick that I am looking for certain areas. So you're not going to come through and, act as if you are fit to be wifey because you may not be a hoe, or because you know how to close your legs, or because you have a job, or because, you're not hood or whatnot. Like, that's not proving you're wifey. And I'm very clear with that. Not to disrespect anybody or not to put anybody down, but just to put it out there so that she knows that I'm looking for certain areas. Now, it's on her if she wants to figure out what those areas are. But to me, it's just like, just know that I have a standard of what I'm looking for. And it's not unfair. It's not over the top, but it is there. So you still have to prove yourself to be wifey. You're not going to show up and simply assume that you are because you're not hood. You're not ghetto. That's not going to do it for me. Right? So I think that has to be understood. I'm going to keep this one short, but it is what it is. God bless.